Howdy y'all, thanks for joining us on this video for our functional farmhouse. Today we're going to be doing a little walkthrough on our custom butcher block island countertop. And this became an issue after we had designed the kitchen. We didn't really get any input or didn't know, we're not professional contractors, and this was a project we had taken on, and the counters that we really wanted were not available in an island width. And while we could have purchased not one, not two, not three, but four 8-foot counter slabs to make it work, it just didn't feel like having all those seams in the granite was going to be exactly what we wanted. So in a fluke, we had come across these gorgeous 12-foot slabs of Brazilian hardwood butcher block through Floor and Decor, and we were able to secure them, and we made them work, and it ended up being actually, despite the massive amount of labor, a pretty good cost savings. We did get an estimate from a big box on Decton, and if you know anything about Home Depot Expo, they had since closed, and now they have their Home Depot Design Center. The second kitchen in our design center here in San Diego at the time had our Thomasville cabinets, our Bosch appliances, not in black stainless but in stainless, and this gorgeous color of Decton. I think it was called Trillium. Lot of movement, very dark, really gorgeous, but I just about died when we got the estimate, which did not include a backsplash. So we kind of went back to the drawing board on that, regrouped, went back with a lighter quartz counter on the walls, and then we opted for this butcher block on our island, and it turned out great. We get a lot of compliments, and it's also very functional, hence one of the names of our channel, our functional farmhouse. We're here, the build was one thing, but we live in our house and we cook, and it's great to have folks over, and we're just really enjoying it. But little did we know our 11-foot island was going to be an issue. And if you know anything about counters and slabs and rock and all that stuff, 9 to 10 feet is about the max. So stone shopping is cool if you have an unlimited budget. Otherwise, it starts getting very expensive. As an example, our counters around the perimeter of our kitchen, the labor to install those was 3 times the amount of the materials itself. So just some food for thought. This butcher block is not for everybody, and you're going to see some of the little headaches we hit and little speed bumps that we've overcome, but stay tuned, follow along. I wish I had more video, but I try to narrate as quickly and efficiently as possible. Our DIY on this project started early with a custom A-frame to pick up our countertops. We have 3 quartz from one supplier and 2 butcher blocks from another. This made sure they were all on edge and delivered safely to the job site, aka the house. Here is the first iteration of the drum sander, and we do not have dust control hooked up, and you can see the immense amount of dust being generated. All right, round 2, we have our dust collector hooked up, and you can see how much that is helping control the sanding. We're feeding at a pretty slow rate. These countertops weigh a ton. They're 12 feet long, just shy of 25 inches deep. This picture is a little difficult to tell, but if you look in the upper section, you can see the kind of hazing, if you will, in the wood due to the sanding. That was one of the artifacts of the drum. I had to change the belt in there a couple of times, but we were making progress. This is the first test fit in the kitchen, and we were really excited to have made progress on this front. Trying to sand down 1/8 of an inch off the top of these turned out to be a lot more work than we wanted, but it's looking very nice. Here's another angle where you can see that we are fitting flush over the tops of the drawers on the cabinet, and this is one of the considerations we had to deal with these counters. We were told they would be contractor grade, completely unfinished, but we did in fact receive them with an 1/8 inch roundover bit, and they were shy a 1/16 of an inch on depth. They were 24 15/16 instead of the 25 inches. We are working on the second slab here, and the temps had come up. We had our pop-up out to try to keep the wood in the shade from getting heat loading, and it was just slow going. We had to push this through, and due to the width of the butcher block, we had to turn it around to get one single pass. So it was 2 passes per depth. This is our first test fitting of both slabs on the island, and this is a sight for sore eyes. We've been working on this project for what seemed like forever, and seeing some end at the end of the tunnel was amazing. Test fit island opposite angle, and we are overlapping the edge of the island the same amount we are overlapping the drawers on both sides. Not seen due to a lot of other work and the weight of these, we opted to biscuit join down the center, and I used just some regular wood glue, and I added a mixture of the different sawdust to try to give the glue a little bit more color instead of just being a dry white, even though they typically dry a little more clear. Now we come down to one of the most exciting times in this build. We get to clamp it and let it dry. Ideally, these clamps would be underneath the work surface. As you can see, the level is demonstrating that we are deflecting significantly in the upward direction due to the angle of the clamping force. And we kept it like this and tightened over a course of 72 hours to make sure we had a solid cure. And this has been holding up great now, almost 6 years, so we haven't had any issue with the joint or anything of that nature. Here's just another view of the clamps, and we use some wood as a spacer off of the actual clamping surface to reduce damage. These were under a lot of tension. This was the moment we were waiting for. Clamps off, checking the fitment, and we were going to continue the work on installing the butcher block surface. Measuring multiple times. This picture is a little faint to see, but you can see my pencil lines. We were centering off the cabinet and the edge of the countertop for our 36-inch Bosch 5-burner gas range. This was a measure multiple times and cut once, and we could not mess this one up. Now I can hear some of you thinking already, Eric, why is the countertop not centered over your oven cabinet? Well, we purposely left the countertop mobile to facilitate cutting this without having to penetrate any of the supports or any of the cabinet below. And once we had that finalized, we went ahead and set the counter in place at its final resting spot. We have the countertop situated on the island. It is mounted down, and here we are filling what few imperfections at the joint, and we're going to sand that down. And we are also adding some filler to the ends of the countertop in order to hide the roundovers when you're looking at it. Final stages of sanding, we have the filler sanded down, and both the edges have been filled, and there are a couple of little spots where you can see the seam in this picture, but once we have the countertop situated, it is completely invisible. Here's a picture at the overhang side of the countertop, and in the middle you can see where I filled the edge to hide that gap, and you can see those 1/8 rollovers meeting in the middle, and it's fairly ugly. We have the stovetop opening finalized with heat-resistant foil tape along the edges, plus a foam seal that came with the Bosch unit around the edge to keep any kind of detritus from slipping underneath and falling into the cabinet on top of the oven below. At this point, we're test fitting the stovetop and the oven below, and we ran into a situation with the Bosch oven where the top of the panel comes up a little higher than the top of the cabinet, which seems like a major oversight. So we ended up using this level as a guide for a router trim bit so we could fit the stove underneath without having to do anything else with the cabinet. Here's a forward-facing view. If you look at the top of the oven, you can see the interface that we trimmed out of the butcher block to allow that oven to fit flush all the way in that cabinet. And it looks great. It's hardly noticeable if we didn't point it out. Here is an image of pictures of the tools borrowed, quite a few things, and I was lucky enough to have someone to borrow the drum sander and some additional sanding equipment and dust collection, as well as clamps. We used the cutout from the cooktop to make a standalone cutting board that is very sizable, and it sits right on top of the countertop. And this we were doing an A/B testing with the silicone sealant and conditioner, and the initial pass wasn't that dark, but as you'll see, we ended up getting a lot darker than we had hoped, and we have been letting that fade to get back to the original coloring. Seeing this was our first butcher block project, especially in the kitchen, we were following everyone's recommended advice of siliconing the heck out of this thing, and we made multiple passes and used almost a half a gallon of silicone, if I recall. But we ended up pouring it on. It soaked up a ton of this liquid. Here you can see the countertop getting darker as we are applying additional coats of silicone, and it was starting to get a little darker than we wanted, but we were hopeful that it would fade pretty quickly. Here we have the final iteration of the butcher block prior to us moving into the kitchen, if you will, and it is much darker than we had hoped or anticipated. We have since been letting this come back naturally, and this countertop is a mixture of hardwood from Brazil. It is amazingly dense, so much so that our cutting board, as you can see in the middle, I thought we were going to have to resand that on an annual basis, and I have since almost 6 years have not had to recondition even the cutting board, let alone any of the surfaces on top of the counter we have used as a cutting surface. Hey y'all, thanks for watching, and here we are at the end. This is indeed our house. We live in it. We've got some bread cooling on the stovetop, but you can see we got a lot of our color back, and this is the color we were aiming for, and it's just been really awesome. You can see there's just a little bit of patina on this cutting board, but again, in almost 6 years, that's hardly enough to warrant me going out and making a huge dust mess, especially trying to sand the countertop in the house. There's 1 or 2 spots that might need a tiny touch-up, but having this butcher block has been amazing. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can see you on some more shares that we've got going on.